Start? Mm-hmm. Happy birthday, Richard, and to your twin brother and your triplet sister. Can I tell you a story about Richard?
I would love that.
My favorite story was when I was to meet Richard down near the dollhouse. He'd come from Richfield with two of his friends, and we arrived at the appointed time, and so there were three in his car, and I was alone in my car. So one of his friends got out of his car and came to ride with me in my car so that I wouldn't have to drive in the rest of the way alone. Well, he started out leading, and I told this fellow that got in with me, I said, I'm not as quiet and aggressive driver as Richard, so I probably won't keep up with him. And he says, aggressive? He drives like a madman.
Little did you know.
I can verify that.
We hiked together in midlife. I don't remember the age we were, but we two hiked up Mount Whitney, the highest peak in California, up and back without stopping or camping, which was quite a strenuous experience. We also did the highest peak in Utah, Kings Peak, and we've done that in one day without stopping or camping. And we were quite fatigued at the end of the day. Richard and I, when we were together hiking or jeeping, we were able to solve all of this nation's problems as well as the world's problems. But when it came to public education, Richard solved the problems of public education all by himself. One time we were hiking Mount Timpanogos, and two athletic college mountain runners passed us on the trail. And so we decided to follow them, and so we started in a run after they'd turned the bend, and we started running past a group of people and said, how far ahead are our partners? Will we catch them soon? And we were gray-haired men, but after we rounded the next bend, we had a good laugh after that, because the people were somewhat amazed that these gray-haired men were mountain running up the hill.
Oh, that's good.
And left two kids, and so Owen was widowed with two kids. Okay. And so mother took, I remember Gerald, somebody thought that Carolyn stayed with us too, but I only remember Gerald.
So how long did he stay with you?
I don't remember, but it wasn't long.
Oh, okay.
I think Owen remarried soon after, and then he was able to take care of Gerald.
That makes more
Caroline.
sense. Okay, because I couldn't figure out how he could be a brother-in-law. So again, the census is off, but I just saw him on the 1940
Yeah,
census.
I'm sorry. You were right. He was a cousin.
Okay. Okay, so family vacations. I heard about a couple, and I heard that they took separate vacations because you couldn't all fit in one car at once with the luggage. And so
I have no recollection of that.
they just said that sometimes, they take a couple kids and go on a trip somewhere, and then another time they take some other kids. And
I have no memory.
no remember that? Okay. So what, do you remember any family vacations that stick out? I saw one in, I think it was Canada somewhere.
We went, as I recall, we went to Yellowstone, and I can't remember whether I was with them or not, based on photographs. I think Mother dressed all three of the kids in blue. The boys were identical clothing.
Okay,
And I don't remember, but Janelle must have been in blue.
okay.
But I don't remember whether my memory is actually being there or seeing pictures. I can't differentiate.
Okay, so what were the jobs in home? Do you remember who did what chores in your home? And I heard that the girls seemed to do the inside work, scrubbing on their hands and knees on the floor, and that you guys maybe did the gardening and shoveling coal and things like that?
Well, we had a coal furnace, and so we would have to fill up the hopper to the furnace. Then there was a screw that would take the coal from the hopper into the fire pit. And I remember we had that job, and then we called them clinkers. The residue in the firebox we had to clean out.
Oh,
But I don't know. It seemed like I was doing it all the time. I don't remember it being a shared task.
well, yeah, that's how it works when you're young. You get all the work and everybody else seems to get off scot-free.
Why'd you tell about sleeping upstairs in your home? You didn't have heat up there.
Oh,
And about Steve when he would wire the front door.
I haven't heard
What
that story.
had to do with Richard though?
That's okay, I'm just collecting some stories too. Because that's something my dad would remember.
When
So-
you guys would date and he'd wire the front door when you came in and would set the lights off or the bell?
There were some good stories that Merrill could have told about non-recognition at college
Didn't,
because of the twins.
oh, well, he didn't, so go ahead and tell me what you remember.
No, I just heard their stories that the people wouldn't know whether it was Merrill or Richard, or if they only knew one of them and happened to bypass the other who didn't know them, then they would think that they were,
Being rude?
yeah. But that's their story. I have no firsthand knowledge of that.
Well, I didn't get any of that. I got one story about Merrill going to a dance or some event where they had to be there for National Guard or something. And my dad had another meeting, so he took his ticket and they would call you up if you won a prize, and that's how they'd make sure you were there. And so my dad's ticket got called. So Merrill had to go up, and he said luckily none of his friends told on him. Because they could tell who was who.
Had both advantages and disadvantages of being
Exactly.
identical twins.
So, so you guys slept in the upstairs of the house?
Mhm.
And it wasn't heated?
Well, it was an attic until Father was able to finish it.
Oh, was that, how old were you when that happened? Do you remember?
No, but the two boys, Richard and Merrill, slept up there, and I did, and there was no heat up there. So we would dress downstairs and then run up there and jump into bed.
Oh dear, that's kind of cold. I remember fond memories of sleeping up there, but that's when it was nice and cozy, and and Grandma was making fun memories for us.
It was Mother's father, or my grandfather Taylor, that finished the upstairs for us.
Oh really?
Father hired him to finish it.
So did he do that kind of work, contracting kind of work, or?
Grandfather could do everything: electrical, plumbing, plastering,
Oh.
carpentry. He knew it all.
So he was the man to hire. That's wonderful. So tell me more about what she was talking about with Steve. What was he doing? Wiring something?
Are you on?
Uh-huh.
I don't know what you mean. I don't.
She said something about Steve would wire the door as a practical joke or something.
I don't have any recollection of that.
Okay. What was your dad like as a father? Was he heavy-handed or pretty?
He was the ideal father. He loved us and tried to do good things for us. And he used to drive us to school on his way to work, which was particularly pleasant in the wintertime. Other than that, we would have to walk a quarter of a mile to catch the school bus.
Oh boy. I bet you love those days. So tell me, so did he discipline very much, or was that your mom's job?
No, Father would call us down when we did something wrong, but never harsh discipline.
So do you remember good advice your dad gave you? Were there statements that were said all the time, you know, that kind of stuck with you through your life?
No, I told Father once that I went to work for Father in the business, and I told him that I learned more from him about business than I did 4 years of college at the University of Utah.
Mm-hmm. And it was free education.
No, I worked.
That's true. Hard knocks education. So what were some favorite family foods that you would eat? Is there any stuff that you guys would always look forward to, or?
Yeah, when we went deer hunting, Mother would make us a great big large raisin cake to take with us and to share with the other camp. And it was so heavy that if you ate a piece in the morning, it would last all day.
That was on purpose, so you didn't have to pack a lot of food. So who usually went hunting together?
Dad's family and Ellis's family.
Okay.
So the boys of both families, and so we had a fairly large camp and a fun camp.
Where did you go to hunt? Was there?
We always, the memories that I have was usually always out in Skull Valley. I remember, however, going down to Holden and hunting in the mountains down there on at least one occasion, but mostly Skull Valley.
I've seen some pictures of some pretty big looking animals that you guys caught. And then you guys would just have that meat for the rest of the year?
Yes. Mom and Dad had a locker in Sugar House, and would put the meat there in that locker in Sugar House, and then periodically they would go retrieve it for meals at home.
So was that at a grocery store?
No, it was Hygeia Ice, as I remember, in Sugar House.
Oh, like on 21st South?
Yeah.
Oh, I skated there. I was sad when that place went bye-bye. What about transportation? You guys had one car for the most part, or?
One car until I think Grandpa Taylor died, and then Dad bought that car for Mother. So at that point we had 2 cars.
Oh, it belonged to your grandpa.
Grandpa Taylor.
Oh, okay. So did you guys learn to drive pretty young then?
Yeah, we weren't able to drive regularly until we had our license, which we got at age 16. I had a paper route, and Father let me take the car on Sunday mornings because the papers were big. And so I learned how to drive in snow on that paper route when Father let me take the car.
Any car accidents?
I can't remember of any.
Okay. It's been blocked from your memory. It was traumatic.
I guess.
Tell me about your church experiences. I guess they had the split Sunday school in the morning and the sacrament meeting in the evening, right? Did you guys go to both meetings?
We did, and the only meetings that Father would go to would be when one of us was giving a talk, and then he would attend with Mother.
Okay. So you were, all the rest of you were very active and
We were.
going to things?
Yeah.
Okay.
Have I got a bell to ring when we're through?
He doesn't remember the story about Steve, so should I ask Steve about that? The wiring the bell?
Yeah.
Well, would you share about that one particular river trip where you guys just share your memories of that?
All right. Richard and I took a canoe and loaded 2 motorcycles in a pickup truck and put the canoe above the motorcycles. And so we had 2 motorcycles and a canoe in our pickup truck. We dropped the motorcycles off at I-70 where the San Rafael River crossed I-70, and then we took the pickup truck upriver to launch on the river. The reason for the motorcycles was so that when we got out of the river, that we could ride the motorcycles back up to where we dropped the pickup truck to enter the river. And so we entered the river. We purposely went early in the year, perhaps April, because we wanted high water, because in the fall the water gets really too low to navigate the river. And so it was early and the water was ice cold. And we put on our life vests, and as I remember, I was in the back of the canoe and Richard was in the front. And as we went, we started getting into a gorge. Where we launched, there were banks on either side and we could get in and out. But as we progressed down the river, the gorge got deeper and deeper and deeper. And it was a tough gorge. There were great big boulders obstructing the river that had fallen off of the adjoining cliffs into the river. And it was difficult to pass those rivers because the river was obstructed. So we would frequently have to get out in portage. I remember getting in that ice cold water up to my chest with Richard and lifting the canoe over the log so we could go further on the river. On another occasion, as we were going down the river, we had to, rather than portage and carry the canoe, we were guiding the canoe along below us. We were scrambling over rocks, and the canoe tipped and filled with water. And as it filled with water, it became so heavy, it jerked the lead rope out of our hands and went on down the river. And we could never find the canoe after that. And it was getting dark, and we knew that we couldn't get down to the end of the river where our motorcycles were parked. And so we found a flat place along the river where we could get out. And there was a lot of brush and trees there and a lot of fallen logs. We had dry matches. I guess we'd protected them, wrapped them in plastic, but we had dry matches. And so we started a fire, and then with the fire started, we would take off our clothing one piece at a time and wave it over the fire so that that clothing would dry. And we were successful and got our clothing all dry. And we found a nice flat place where we could lie down for the night and sleep. And so we went to sleep. We left the fire burning for warmth. And as I remember, we had to get up from time to time and put more wood on the fire during the night to stay warm. We got up the next morning and decided we had to get on down the river and find our motorcycles. So we prepared to put on our shoes, and we couldn't find our shoes. We determined that our shoes were on a log not far from the fire. And during the night, the 10 or 11 hours of the night, that fire had crept up the log and burned our shoes that was sitting on the log. And so there wasn't anything remaining of the shoes, so neither of us had any shoes. And we weren't used to walking barefoot. And the creek, when it was shallow enough to walk through it, and we had to walk through it because of the gorge, and there were seldom any banks on the river, was cobble rock. And it pinched and hurt our feet and bruised our feet. It was very painful. And we continued, and when we would find a bank, we would get out of the ice-cold river and walk along the bank because it was warmer that way. But when the gorge was too narrow, we would have to float down the river in our life vests, and we would float down there with our feet in front of us, going down the river in the rapids. Sometimes the river was well over our heads. Other times it was shallower. And of course, when it was shallow, we had no trouble walking except for the bruises on our feet. But when it was narrow, we were confined or consigned to the ice-cold water of the river. And as the day wore on and the sun got longer in the sky, in that gorge we had very little sun because of the shadows. And we were starting to get hyperthermia. We were very, very cold and very fatigued, and we hadn't had any food for more than 24 hours, and we were weak from lack of food. So we finally decided that we couldn't go any further. The sun was going down, and we found a rock, a large wall of the gorge that we could lean against that had been warmed by the sun during the day. And that helped us stop our shivering as we leaned against that warm rock. We didn't know what to do. We had not the energy to go any further. And so we appealed to a higher authority to give us some help. Almost instantaneously, or very soon thereafter, two men came down in two kayaks. They were experienced outdoorsmen, and they could see our plight. They generously gave us a can of sardines and some trail mix, which we relished ravenously. But we wanted to get out of the gorge because the river was so cold. And the gorge was narrow, and it was hard to find a place where we could sleep for the night again. These men had climbing ropes in their kayaks, and so they offered to help us get out of the gorge. So one of them took his climbing ropes and climbed up to the top of the gorge, and then lowered the rope, and we would tie the rope in a loop and put it under our armpits. And then we would scramble up the cliff as he pulled us up the cliff, and finally got to the top of the gorge. And there he left us, figuring that he'd done his good turn for the day. And so we were up there on somewhat flat ground, but we could hardly move because the rocks had little pimples or nipples on them, which pricked into our feet, and we could hardly stand, let alone walk. We couldn't find anything to build a fire, and it was getting dark, and there was not even enough sagebrush to build a fire, and so we were wondering what we were going to do that night for warmth. We heard some people talking on a ledge over across the ravine. And it was a couple, a man and a woman that had set up their tent and were camping there. Awfully unusual for them to camp there in April. The camping season is usually much later. But we hollered to them. They heard our calls, and we told them that we needed some help. Well, they says, well, come on up. We can't walk. So they threw down their shoes, both of them. So we had her shoes and his shoes. And with the shoes to protect our feet, we were able to climb up and over to where their camp was. They're very gracious, and they took down their tent, gathered up their camp, and they drove us up to where we had our pickup truck. And so we were saved by our prayers, the kayakers and the campers. So in the pickup truck, we went and found a motel in Green River. We ordered dinner, but I couldn't eat it because my throat was so sore. But we had a good night's sleep, and the next morning we drove our pickup truck and picked up the motorcycles, but we never did find the canoe that we lost on the river.
Now, wait a minute. Are you sure this is Daddy? And they look at the other one, the other one start to cry. She says, oh, come here.
You better videotape her.
No,
That's
I
what
don't
I
want to
think.
go. Come step behind. I don't
You
want
look
to.
great. Come on. Marlene did it.
Oh, Marlene.
Peer pressure.
But see, Con was the first one married, and Mary was so good to me.
Oh, well, I remember the Sunday visit. She was so quick-minded. She would sit there and tell you what was going on with every single person.
She was good. And she invited us to dinner frequently.
Yeah.
We ate a lot of dinners there after we were married.
I have a couple of videos of that, and
I mean, she had a beautiful
fancy table.
set. Yes. I think Janelle got that table.
Oh, really?
Yes. Didn't she?
I don't know.
I think she got one.
Didn't she got a table?
So you guys usually ate at the dining room table, didn't you? Because there really wasn't room in the kitchen.
Yes.
And Con's dad fixed breakfast every Sunday morning so the kids could go to church.
Oh, really? That's supportive. My dad did that every so often on a Saturday. That must be where that tradition came from.
Didn't he do that? Am I remembering right? Something like he did every Sunday
He
morning.
would cook pancakes for us on Sunday morning.
Yeah, so they could go to church. And like Con says, he wasn't an active church member. He was such a good man. And he would support him when they were giving talks or farewells. And Mary had a temple recommend, and she could go to church.
You obviously remember my father and mother, don't you?
Yeah, but I was pretty
They were
young
old,
when your
yeah.
dad
They were
passed
old.
away.
But you remember.
Yeah, I've heard some stories on tape that my mom taped of him talking about some dog ripping his brand new pair of pants and
Yeah, I remember that.
something
But
about.
Mary used to take the kids, they went out to Lagoon, and she'd take them swimming, because she was an excellent swimmer
Oh, so did you guys swim a lot as kids then?
at the lagoon.
We had a tradition of, on the triplet's birthday, we had a tradition that Dad would take the day off, and we usually went swimming to the hot springs somewhere. There's a couple of hot springs. And
They're
Saratoga.
local?
Well, they are, they're hot springs up in northern Utah.
Oh.
Here in Ogden, and there's a lot
Okay.
of hot springs.
So you just drive up. I know Crystal Hot Springs is
Or there
one.
used to be up there in Heber. Did we go up
I
there
think
in the
there's
hot springs?
there's a cave or something with one in it.
There are hot springs in Heber, yes, but
Yeah.
as a family, we never used those hot springs.
You went north, where did you go to hot springs?
Well, there was two. One of them is at Hennifer. There's one up there, and one there's Crystal Hot Springs up
northern
at
Utah.
Bear Lake
Yeah.
City, Bear City, something.
Yeah, there's a lot of them up there, you see them advertised if you drive north.
So did you just go for the day or did you sleep over up there?
No, just the day.
Just the
But
day.
our cousin, Kay Maxfield, That's the son of Dad's brother, Cale.
Okay.
And he had a birthday about the same time. And so the two families, Cale's family and Grant's family, would celebrate the 4 children's birthday.
Didn't you have a tradition going out to Moon Lake too?
We went to Moon Lake a lot.
Yeah.
And you stay in a cabin, right?
Yes.
Over there?
Oh, cabins. You ever been out there?
Not to the cabins. We've been in the lake, but I haven't seen
Oh,
the
that's
cabins.
right. I remember going out there when
Yeah.
you guys were out there and camping. Oh my gosh, those cabins were
They're
1930s.
a joke? Well, at this point, they were probably in good shape.
No, they were old then.
Oh, they were what?
Old then.
Oh, okay.
They were always old.
He's, Grandpa do that, or did
No,
priesthood or
Probably,
just someone in the ward?
Priesthood leaders in the ward.
Okay,
they probably had good home teachers.
yeah. And then, so the Cale's family, Meryl was saying something about Cale had a grocery store or a seed store or something downtown. And
Yep.
Maureen said that you mentioned to her once you guys were going to a restaurant and said, this is where my dad worked for a while or
Yeah, I
something.
can't think of the name of it.
It's Payway is the restaurant, isn't it?
No,
No? Oh, she was mentioning, or P.F. Chang's.
probably.
And she said,
What do they call it?
P.F. Chang's?
Yeah, P.F. Chang, but it's,
It's a restaurant? You mean?
well, they call it
Asian?
another name, but I can't think of it.
Oh, just Asian food? I don't know, but,
Okay,
I don't remember.
but was it in that building?
it was in that building.
Oh, okay.
Father and the 2 brothers, Cale and Grant, built that building.
Oh,
And they built the building adjoining it to the east.
okay.
Maxfield Feed and Grant on the north side.
Cale started the business, and I think Ellis worked there for a little while, but Dad worked there regularly for many years.
Yeah, I did.
It seems like I've seen a picture of 2 guys standing out in front. Was that your dad and Cale then, probably?
It
Have you
was
seen that picture?
Dad and Ellis.
Oh, okay. And so it was a regular grocery store and then they had feed stuff too?
That picture was where they started out across the street. That
Oh.
building is gone.
Yeah, it's an old building. They didn't have food. It just, because Con's dad did grain. He would go out in the fields and buy it, and then he would arrange to ship it to California, and that's where the feeding grain is. But
Oh, okay.
for a long time.
Because
He
Meryl
didn't have
thought it.
trucks, and then Con bought a truck or 2 and was hauling stuff.
I'll leave you
himself.
to tell her.
Well, but they
what
were
you
all
wanna
the
tell her.
subject of Richard.
Oh, well, I just thought we'd get some basic stuff because my dad would probably remember different things too.
Yeah,
And
being younger, yeah,
Yeah.
this is very interesting how you,
yeah,
yeah, this is very interesting.
okay. Well, I was just trying to get down some basic childhood traditions and
Got to get them all together and ask the question, and they all come up with their own idea, which is great.
that probably would have been good.
That is great.
Yeah, and then they play off each other.
Oh, yeah, because I've got some pictures of, I've done 3 loose leaves, my mom and dad, my mom, and then their service. And I've had my siblings go through it, and they keep correcting on the bottom. You know what I'm saying, writing a date or writing something different than I remembered, more specific, so it's been interesting to see.
You remember your 11 o'clock appointment?
Yeah, I got to be out of here.
Okay. All right. Well,
I think it's great what you're doing. It's just invaluable, and it just takes time.
it does. I'm patient.
There are 2
So-
ways you can do it. You can do it like you're doing it, and I don't know how they, or you can do it in a book. Have you seen them when they do it in the books? Let me just show you.
Okay.
You see our family picture?
I wanted to take a peek at that. Here is Con's family. Wow, that is quite the... Look at that. That's beautiful. Oh, that is. Look at that. How many are you now? It's hard to keep track because there's greats, and I'll just do a scan in. There's Brian. Let's see, there's, oh, all right, there's Catherine right there. And, let's see, there's Kent.
I probably got the plan over there, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I think that's,
Maureen arranged that for our 60th wedding anniversary
Oh,
last year.
there's Karen. Okay. Yep, there's Karen. 7.
And she
Oh,
said-
there's Ruth right above her.
And she said no stripes,
Well, just so solid colors. That's
just always
kind of
solid
fun.
colors, yeah.
I like it.
And
there's
2 of their
John,
granddaughters
Mary.
were expecting, and since then they've had babies, so
So
now
how,
they,
how long ago was this though?
just last August,
Oh, that's pretty current though,
yeah.
to get that many people together. So was anyone missing at this
Yeah.
point? Was there missionaries or?
Yeah, Melissa's on her mission, and John and Pam's 2 boys are at school, they didn't come down for that. Or Suzanne, or
That's
Sydney.
just beautiful.
But, yeah, but, you know,
Love it.
I think the more you get, the harder it is. Catherine came down especially for it.
Oh,
So the more you have, the harder it is, what I'm saying, to
yep. Well,
Yeah.
that
You're just trying to